So you're thinking about running, but not sure how to take the first step. My name is Brian Patterson, and I'm here to help. Welcome to Brian's ROMpod. Hello and welcome back to Brian's ROMpod. For our dedicated listeners, a heartfelt thank you for your continued support, and to those joining us for the first time, a warm welcome. I'm thrilled to have you on board for today's episode. As many of you, I'm always passionate about sharing the inspiring stories of ordinary individuals who've embraced running for various reasons. It's a belief of mine that these stories resonate deeply with those considering taking out running themselves. Today, I'm excited to bring you an interview with someone truly special, Anna Couper. I came across Anna through a unique connection. Her husband is our newly appointed vicar. Upon discovering Anna's avid interest in running, I couldn't resist the opportunity to have her share her journey on Brian's ROMpod. So without further ado, let's extend a warm welcome to Anna as she joins us here on Brian's ROMpod for the second time. Welcome, Anna, and thank you very much for coming onto the podcast for the second time, because I know we did have a few sort of like technical issues last time, but thank you very much for coming on. Anyway, as I do with many of our guests, I'd like to start like at the beginning as to, I think I asked you last time, as to what was your experience of running and exercise at school?
Yes, and I think that was the one where I felt most exposed, actually, answering that question, because the reality is my experience at school wasn't particularly great. I hated running. I used to dread cross-country, the fitness tests. I don't know if they still do those in school, the bleep tests.
Yeah, I think they do.
Literally would make me feel nauseous beforehand. And I think part of that was as I grew up, I became very self-conscious, young woman, and I just sensed that you had to be a certain way and look a certain way. And I just hated running because I struggled with it. I wasn't fast, and the implication was you only run if you're fast. You only run if you can win the race. You only run if you know you're good at it. Yeah. There's no pleasure in running. So yeah, I avoided running enormously, and even athletics. People were like, oh, it's just the 100 or it's just the 400. Just the thought filled me with dread. Having said that, I enjoyed team sports. So I played hockey. I did gymnastics for a time. And I enjoyed those elements. But even then, when we did training, running was right up there as my most hated thing in training. I had a real kind of dislike of it as an activity when I was a teenager.
Did you, as a family, did you watch sport, or did you watch sport yourself?
Not particularly. So my sister got into hockey first, and then I followed her into it, really. Although my sister's younger, she was very good. And I think one match, I have a really vivid memory of one of the players getting a ball to the jaw and having to come off, and they're having nobody to play. And so the coach literally said, get on the pitch, Anna, because you're the only person here old enough to be able to join the match. And I was terrible, obviously, had no idea what I was doing. But it kind of think, oh, this could be quite fun. I might give it a go. So we would watch hockey as a family every now and again. My sister was very much into it. And obviously we watched it. We were watching my sister play. Yeah. But generally speaking, no, I'm not big sports watchers, not necessarily football or anything like that.
Not like when the Olympics came round every 4 years, did you? Was it you could have take it or leave it?
Not massively, yeah. I think I wonder whether part of it is that we're hybrid in terms of nationality. So my father's Italian, my mum's Scottish, but we grew up in Belgium. And so I've often noticed amongst my peers and even my husband, when these events happen, there is a form of kind of nostalgic nationalism, that sense of, oh, I'm really rooting for my country and my countrymen and women who are taking on these sports. And I guess I just never really had that sense of identity, certainly not growing up. And so I didn't then necessarily have much interest in seeing any one country do better than another. And because I didn't necessarily have a strong interest in sport generally, I didn't then watch for other reasons.
I don't know if you have an opinion on this, but I don't know, sort of going back on when we talked the last time, I was just thinking that, do you think nowadays it's moved on in a sort of encouraging girls to get into sport? I know you have boys, and it's a very different kettle of fish for boys,
Yeah.
but do you think they still have the same anxieties like you had?
That's a really good question. I think, yes, I think the anxieties are still there. I think they haven't gone. However, I think there are a significantly greater number of female role models in sport. I think of, just thinking about the Olympics and the number of women that are reported on. There's more presence around and reporting on women's football.
Yeah.
I think being able to see other women competing athletically and at their absolute peak, even after having children, right? I think all of these things go some way to changing those narratives that young girls are growing up with. So although the anxiety is there, I think it's much easier to break past that because you've seen and you are looking at people who have done that. Whereas I think when I was younger, that was less so the case.
Yes. Yeah. Especially with social media. And which is when it wasn't in our day. So now there is, like you said, although there's a lot more role models, but again, at the same time, there's things like social media. That's another discussion.
Yes, yeah. In terms of adding to the anxiety as well as alleviating it.
Although I was the other day watching a program about Eilish McLaughlin, who is a Scottish middle distance runner. Mother was a very famous distance runner, was very successful, and she was a world champion at 10,000 meters or whatever. And even her, when she was at university, she did an accountancy degree or something. And even at school, she wasn't massively, even though her mum was, but she did her own thing at uni. And I remember her mum just listening on the program, and her mum was saying she had to bite her lip a few times. Yeah. And then that was and then it wasn't until later that she came into athletics. But it's interesting, even people who have a pedigree of successful parents in this field, even then they don't necessarily follow the line until maybe later they discover it. Yeah,
I think you find your own path there, don't you? Your own journey to the sport and the rhythm that suits you.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get back to how we transitioned from Anna at school to Anna the runner.
Yeah.
So how did that happen?
It took a long time. Yeah, I'll be honest, I didn't start running till my 30s. So I had my children, my first in my late 20s and then my second early 30s. And to be honest, before then, I hadn't even considered running as something that I want to commit to or invest in. I'd go to the gym, I'd do classes, I'd even run on the treadmill, although that was often just a bit of cardio before doing other stuff. But when time is really tight and when we just had our children, we didn't have a massive budget. I didn't want to be spending money on a gym that I wasn't going to. And so running felt like a good alternative, particularly because I didn't have to run very far or very fast. I could do it in my own time. And it just gave me some space. I could be outside, I could breathe, and I could just switch off. And so I think that was what drew me to it to start with. A couple of people saying, oh, why don't you try that? And I thought, you know what, I've got nothing to lose. I will just give it a go and see.
And was it just a case of putting on the trainers and then just going out the door? Because obviously you got your gym kit.
Yeah.
But did you not follow a program at all? Or
So what's interesting is after we spoke, I actually remembered that my very first attempt was a disaster. When I say disaster, complete disaster. I got to the end of the road and thought, what am I doing? This is ridiculous. This is too hard. Walked back home and was really quite despondent and was like, what have I done? I'll do this. And then thankfully by this point, social media does exist. And I decided to go online to see whether there was something I could do. And that's when I discovered the Couch to 5K. And so that felt achievable. That was goal orientated. I could do it in my own time. And it wasn't just an expectation that I would just walk out the door and be able to run. I think it's developed and been modeled for people who have never run before. And it was amazing for me. And it took me a long time to complete that 5K. And I restarted it a few times. And some weeks, the 3 runs that you're supposed to do in that week would take me 6 weeks to complete. But I persevered, and it's just one of those things I could keep coming back to and I could keep committing to. Yes, so for me, that was huge, the Couch to 5K as a way of getting started because I had nothing to fall back on. So I know a lot of people, they sometimes run before children, or they ran as a teenager, or they used to do cross country. And it sounds a bit bizarre, but as someone who had never really run before, and certainly not outside, it felt so alien physically. And it just I felt so out of breath. all I was thinking of, I'd be that person running down the street going, just get to the lamppost, just get to the lamppost. And I'd get to the lamppost and be like, to the next lamppost. The lampposts were only like, what, a couple of feet apart. I wasn't really going very far.
Were there things you started to learn about yourself when you started running? So were they, I don't know, how you felt? It's now getting easier, or even from a mental thing, willpower, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So interestingly, I think physically it didn't get easier for a while. It really, and also we're talking postnatally as well. So my body had changed quite significantly anyway since having children. And so physically I didn't really see the benefits in terms of what others might be talking about, toning and feeling healthier. But mentally it was transformational in terms of that headspace. And although for a while at the beginning, I spent most of my run thinking about the run, even that was a distraction. It took me out of the chaos of nappies and sleepless nights and things. So even though that sounds crazy that I would want that, it forced my mind to concentrate on something else. And I wasn't distracted by my to-do list or the myriad of things that I'd have to do when I got home. And that was really good for me. And then the other thing was I discovered that I'm a lot more disciplined than I thought I was.
Yeah,
And for me, that was huge. To be disciplined, to go, to run, to commit to even doing that kind of couch to 5K session that week. In many ways, and this is going to sound a bit odd, but it's really changed my approach. And it even changed my work life in terms of just that discipline to do it and go and be like, actually, you know what? I did that and I've achieved that and I'm still achieving. And there's still more goals and things that I want to achieve. And I'd not really had that in any other thing that I was doing. To have something.
I'm surprised you had the energy to do it even when your kids were so young and they didn't sleep that well.
No,
so I'm surprised you had the energy to.
But I think you're on, I don't know if any of your other listeners have had young children and had sleepless nights. You move into kind of a survival mode. And actually those times when you're on your own at the supermarket or moving between tasks, where you don't necessarily have a young child, strapped to you or needing you, it is so important to your mental health and well-being. And then the added, benefit of, to be clear, I think, but at that point, it was barely jogging, but it was moving. It was moving with purpose. And I went out and I found the energy to do those things because it made me feel better. And mentally, it made me feel better. And I felt like I was more able to cope with the lack of sleep and the chaos of those early months.
Sort of self-perpetuating.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, exactly. It just gave you being fitter meant that you could.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And it gave me energy. And I think anyone who runs regularly would probably say the same, that you feel tired after the run, but actually the buzz and the energy that you get from running, I feel better in myself for the days that follow.
So you started the couch to 5K, maybe took you a few goes to try and do it. So I know the last time we talked, you did say that there was a kind of a breakthrough point. So explain about that.
Yeah.
What happened?
So I think achieving that 5K was phenomenal. That it felt amazing. And just the achievement level for me as someone who had really struggled to run for so long, that was huge. And then 5K became a bit of a block because it then became like this, I have to always run a 5K now. And I didn't really know how to push past it. The Couch 5K is brilliant as a model to get you running, but I didn't really know what to do after that. I'd run my 5K. I tried to get a bit faster and I thought that was my next goal. I would just run a quicker 5K, but that wasn't really happening either because some days...
Were you using the same route? Or?
Yeah, so I often use the same route. Okay. I tried to break it up a bit, but part of my kind of my running, Yeah, part of my kind of running headspace is having a route that I'm really familiar with so that I don't have to think about it. So I quite like having familiarity so that I know the points at which I'm going to turn around and I might deviate from that every now and again, but I like that kind of core because then I can switch off and I can process and do what I need to do kind of thing. So for a long time, I just stuck at that 5K, not really knowing where to go with it. And I joined a running group briefly whilst we were living in Beckenham. And there someone talked about kind of intervals, having faster sprints, doing shorter runs. And I think that's when I became more aware of actually, in order to extend a run or change how you run, you don't just keep doing the same thing.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's funny, again, if you don't run, you don't know that. And it hadn't even occurred to me to go on social media and see what other people were saying, because I was enjoying my 5Ks. And it was more of that one of those sort of, I'm wondering why this is not really changing, but okay, I'll just keep at it.
You didn't think that having that variability might make it more interesting?
No, it's interesting, isn't it? I hadn't really
but you were quite happy tootling along.
And obviously, I still had young children, so to some extent, I maybe didn't have the brain power to necessarily sit down and commit to improving my running, because I was just enjoying it for what it was. But I also had a friend, a really good friend who runs, and her name was Jenny. And I remember there were a couple of times where I stalled because I just didn't feel like doing the 5K. And so I was like, well, I don't do anything then. And she basically said to me, actually, go out anyway. It's more important when you're running just to be consistent. If you don't want to run far, then just run 2K. Just do a kilometre and a half. And actually, that was a real turning point for me in my running, because actually that's when I started running further, weirdly. The combination of things up a little bit and doing kind of intervals, not feeling like I had 5K every time I went for a run, freeing myself from this weird mindset that I'd placed on myself, and just, doing a shorter run, but maybe faster. So I tried to do 2K, but really whittle down my time. And then over time, I was suddenly running thinking, maybe I could do 6K this week, and maybe I could try 6.5. And I just pushed things that little bit further because I wasn't so fixated on that one distance.
Moving on to today, what's your current, as the Americans say, your regime?
I try to, and the operative word is try, because obviously there's often things that pop up and times of year get busier than others, but generally I try to run 2 to 3 times a week.
Right.
And I'll run between 5 to 6K. And then depending, sometimes if I haven't been able to do the runs in the week, I'll do a weekend run. And generally, because I'm less time bound, I run further. I don't plan to. I'll plan to do 6 or 7K, but I might end up doing 8 and surprising myself, which is nice. But I tend to have a kind of a clearer morning so that I'm not, rushing back.
Because I remember you saying that after we talked, you did 5 miles. Or,
I did 8.5 kilometers, and it felt great. Like, I think also the temperature had just slightly dropped, and it was drizzling, which for me is like optimum running temperature.
Yeah.
So that's what I tried to do. And then I also introduced Pilates since September, because I was getting a pain in my hip every time I ran. And thought I'd look into sort of ways that I might be able to alleviate that and support that. And Pilates came up as a really good way of managing the muscles and strengthening the muscles around the hip as well as the hip itself. And that's been really great. And I hadn't thought to do that before, but there was a local class and I thought I'll give it a go.
All right. So are you doing that during the day in the church? Or?
Yes. So I do that once a week.
Right.
And then run either side of it generally, and then try and get a weekend run in as well. So.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You found exploring the Pilates, because I have interviewed a Pilates teacher who does, I think, the evening classes, Lucy Tomlins. And I was just interested that how did you feel the benefits of doing the Pilates kind of straight away, or is it something that, because I know you have to be quite connected, really think about what you're doing when you're doing Pilates, don't you?
Yes, yeah.
And then maybe it might take a few weeks to...
Yeah, it definitely takes time. It's not something I found overnight was like, oh, this is great. Yeah. But now that I've been doing it...
I'm not coming back.
This isn't right. So actually, I would probably say in the last couple of weeks, I've seen the benefits most. So my hip hurts a lot less when I run. And pain hasn't gone completely, but it's definitely improving. And I'm sensing kind of overall core strength is better. And all the things that just keep everything in place, right? Just make you feel stronger.
Yeah.
Or better than before. Because I think that's the only thing with running is that high impact, but obviously in terms of your arms don't necessarily get much stronger when you're running, and your core not necessarily, although it can have an impact. But I think the combination of Pilates and running has been really good.
Yeah. Because I think one of the things is that maybe people don't focus on so much is that strength or that core stuff.
Definitely.
And how that has such a benefit to someone's running, rather than I'm just as guilty as anyone, just going out running and neglecting that side of your fitness.
Yeah. And even just the breathing element of Pilates, obviously, that controlled breathing, it surprised me, but even that has an impact on my running. And if I'm starting to feel really tired, just trying to manage my breathing whilst running has been really interesting. And just watching that, just trying different things and seeing if that helps to lower my heart rate a little bit. And it's good.
Good. I know we touched on the mental health, but also the fact that you're a Christian.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it's something that going out running, apart from the health aspects and well-being, do you feel are there any other benefits there? So being outside, that kind of thing.
Yes, 100%.
Definitely. Yeah.
I think it's just connecting all the dots in some ways, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just being really present. You're really in the moment. I'm certainly really in the moment when I'm running, and it's that space to just be, and just allowing your body to do what it's doing, to not overthink it, not over concentrate, and just have that time just to breathe and to pray and to process.
Yeah.
I will often run if things have got quite stressful at work, and I'll maybe do an impromptu run later in the day that I maybe hadn't planned to do, just because psychologically and physically you've got the endorphins and the benefits, but actually also mentally it just gives me that time to process and to pray through things, to reframe and find that perspective again, and maybe not send the email that I had drafted and come back and go, you know what, actually that's not what I meant, and just
going away from something and then coming 100%. Back and then
a lot of people
exactly
will go for a walk or but for me I think going for a run, it switches other things off. It hones the focus a little bit more.
No, I understand. Because I know you're not great at listening to music, because I know you said you do tend to listen to, which is a bit the opposite to me. So it's not like listening to music. You listen to the audiobooks and the podcasts.
Yeah.
But if you are trying to think of or sort things out, or like you say, pray, or do you maybe put a stop to whatever you're listening to, or do you think those two things can go on at the same time? Or
this is going to sound really odd, and I suspect not everyone will agree with me, but actually I will sometimes put something on that's inane. So that doesn't matter if I switch off and miss 10 minutes of it. The thing, for whatever reason, music just doesn't do that for me. I think I get really absorbed in music in a way that I don't switch off properly. Whereas if I listen to a podcast and they're really familiar voices, that's really comfortable.
Yeah.
And so that often then just allows my mind to wander a little bit. And that's the time when I think I process and I pray and I think through things, because when I let my mind wander, that's when I can get to the crux of what's really bothering me. I think if I try to proactively sometimes sit down and go, why is this upsetting me so much? And I try to break it down, I can be there for a long time trying to unpack it.
Yeah.
And so sometimes allowing my body to take over the run, to just be distracted by some voices, sometimes that's the light bulb moment for me when I can go, oh, yeah, maybe it's that. Maybe that's what it is. That's the niggle. That's the thorny thing that I need to unpack. And that's where I maybe need to go back and then do X, Y, and Z to resolve it. And I don't know whether it's maybe I'm an extrovert and I have introvert moments, but it's taken me a long time to be comfortable with silence. I'm not a massive fan of silence.
Oh, are you? All right. But do you like your own company, though?
Yeah. I don't mind my own company. And actually, I don't mind silence when with others. Right. So I'm actually very happy to sit in silence with someone. I'm very comfortable with that. It's when there's that an emptiness in silence and I feel disconnected. And so I think, particularly when I was younger, I would used to always try and fill the silence. So I think it's probably just habit.
Oh, okay. But not nerves.
No, it's just a
No.
habit. Yeah. No, because like I said, if I'm in company with someone, then it's a
Yeah.
very safe silence. It's
Yeah.
just, I quite like chatter. I
Yeah.
just,
Mm.
that.
Do you have any kind of routines that you do before you run, or you just go straight out the door? Do you stretch?
So I'll do
Okay.
stretches, nothing too intense, but especially as it gets colder, I tend to do a little bit beforehand because otherwise I get outside and I'm like,
Yeah. You don't want to risk injury and
No,
kind of
exactly.
thing.
And what I'll do is that on the days that I know run, I will get in my running kit at the start of the day. Even if I don't quite know when I'm going to go, I'm like, no, today I'm going to run, I'm going to fit it in. And then sometimes there's an opportunity and I just think I'm going to go and I'll get into my kit, do some stretching and go. I try not to overthink it too much. Part of that is because time. If I overthink it, I don't get out the door or some other stuff comes up or an email comes in and I feel like I need to answer it there and then. So I think once psychologically I'm prepped to go, once my mind's on board, I do everything in my power not to let anything interrupt the trajectory of getting out the door, really. So
can you see yourself increasing the frequency of your runs, or you think it's just at the moment because of your situation? Because I know you've recently moved to the area and that kind of thing. So do you think you're quite happy with the frequency and doing the Pilates and then the two weekly runs?
At the moment, that works. I certainly wouldn't rule out running more often. And my friend who really challenged me about getting out the door, even if I don't feel like it, and not fixating on a distance. Her name's Jenny, and I often touch base with her about running because she's an avid runner and also like me in that she.
I hope she'll be listening.
Oh, hopefully. Yes, I did tell her about it. She was like, you should take a listen.
Yeah. She's
been great, and actually having that accountability in someone else. I mean, I know that she committed to running every day for a while and has really seen benefits from that. And so it's tempting to give something a go and think, so I do that quite a lot. So Jenny will be like, oh, I've done this. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should try that. So she probably doesn't know that. She'll probably listen and be like, oh, that explains that.
Yeah.
But it's great because actually I do follow a couple of people on social media who run and things like that. But actually I think it's the people that you're friends with often. It's the people around you that kind of encourage you to get out there and go for a run or tell you about what they've done and you think, oh, I might give that a go. But for the moment it's just fitting in.
Yeah. Okay.
But I wouldn't rule it out. Maybe next year, Brian, I'll be like, oh, I've done it. I did it every day for them.
Yeah. Or because I know, again, when we last talked, you thought maybe a goal might be to do a half marathon. And I sort of talked about the Cabbage Patch, which is a local run here, which is 10 miles. So,
which I am really tempted, actually. And after we chatted, I said to Simon, my husband, and was like, oh, apparently there's this 10-mile run. And I genuinely think that's something I could work towards.
Definitely. So, and it's quite flat.
Yes, I know you said that. And I thought that appeals.
Yeah. So
I think after I did my 8.5K, I thought, you know what, actually, it's not beyond the realms of the possible to aim for something like that. And I think it's just that commitment and consistency, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of maybe finding a running plan that I can work towards and explore different ways of extending my runs step by step. But I will be looking into that.
Definitely. Brilliant. You said your friend Jenny, is she your role model to a certain extent?
Yeah, she's my role model and accountability. I think, like I said before, it just really helps to have someone who gets it and who also enjoys running, but also has tough runs as well. And you can have that coffee and talk about it. And yeah, I think certainly my running improved considerably whilst we lived in southeast London, and some of that's in no small part because we would talk about it and we would talk about what we'd been achieving and what we were trying. And I think someone who shows an interest in your running journey is a real encouragement as well. Yeah, I'm really grateful to her for that as well.
Do you think what advice would you give to, let's say, someone who is starting on this running journey? Do you think that's one of the things that would help or encourage them to?
100%. I have to admit, when I first started running, I didn't really tell anyone apart from Simon, because obviously he was seeing me go out for a run.
Yeah.
And part of that was embarrassment and fear that I wouldn't be able to. I had a lot of blocks on whether I'd even be able to achieve it. And even when I did the 5K, couch to 5K, I didn't really tell anyone because, again, what if I didn't achieve it? And actually, I would advise anyone to ignore what I did, because actually the running community, the people around you, are so generous and so encouraging. Like, everyone I've met who runs is so passionate about the benefits of running that they're generally going to cheerlead you in that and be like, run 1 kilometer, run 2 kilometers. That's amazing, because everything you do will be working towards continuing. The idea is once you get started, and the truth is it's hard. When you start, it's really hard. It's hard to get out there. It's hard to keep going. I'll be honest, I felt really bad at running for ages.
Do you think that, because I don't know, I was looking at my Strava stats and this time last year, I think I didn't run for 3 weeks. And I think maybe this is a thing that I do every year. So I just, December is self-indulgent and whatever. But then you feel that you can always come back to it, and then you don't feel guilty that you've taken a break. So
definitely. I think once you learn that, once you realise that actually you're not in competition with anybody, this is not a competitive sport. This is about you just getting comfortable and getting better. And I think once you work on that discipline and just find your feet in that, you just reap the benefits physically, socially, psychologically. It's just so good for you. And like, if I was talking to myself 10 years ago, I'd genuinely just say, keep going. It gets easier, and that it's okay to find it hard. I think sometimes there's this sense, and especially going back to social media, there's a sense of, and there's a lot of people there that are like, oh, if you just do these things, you'll find it really easy. And actually, it's find those people who are saying, this is really hard, but let's do this together, because they're your people. They're the people who'll be really honest. They're the people that, even if it's just for that season, just help you get into running, but don't give up.
Okay. And do you have, on the sort of running attire, do you, in terms of shoes, do you have a particular brand that you normally quite?
So I run in Asics, and I really like them. I have to admit, I haven't tried lots of different trainers. I think I found a pair that I really liked, and I'm comfortable, so I haven't ventured out beyond that. Also scares me a little bit when you start looking at all the options.
I know. So any other running tech that you tend to...
No, to be honest, it's just headphones and a good running app that calculates, does what you need it to do, and good trainers.
Yeah.
And that's it, really.
And have you had any kind of major... Oh, yeah, I suppose you have briefly touched on it. It's like the injury to the hip. Have you had any other injuries? Nothing? Knees have been okay, haven't you?
Yeah, my knee's all right, actually, but I managed to sprain my foot, which was frustrating because it was my own fault. I had obviously put my shoe on badly.
Oh,
and it was, and I didn't know that was a thing. So I thought, oh, maybe it's just a bit uncomfortable. And I could barely walk on it the days that followed. And then it took me about 3 or 4 weeks to be able to run again. And I was just kicking myself, because if I just stopped when I felt the pain, I would have spared myself. So my only other advice is listen to your body. If you start and you think, I'm really not feeling it, and you push on for a little bit and you're really not feeling it, go home. You can always try again tomorrow.
Okay. Now I know, so you said you're half Italian. So have you run in Italy?
I have, yes.
Yeah, and what was that like? Because oh dear. Okay.
Yeah, so we tend to go every summer to see family and catch up, and we drink lovely wine and eat lots of delicious food. And so I take my running kit with me. One, because again, it just gives me that space to go off in the morning and I just go for a run. I have to go quite early, but even then, by that point,
because it's cooler around.
But it's already kind of 25 degrees, even at kind of 6 a.m. So you're, it's hot. So I run much slower, but I wouldn't change it. I still really enjoy going. I tend to go running and take my running gear if I'm going away for any length of time. just because I quite mapping out little routes and even just going for a couple of short runs.
It tends to be more motivating if you choose things,
absolutely.
different things.
Yes, and also I think if you're somewhere really beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
I did a couple of work trips to Geneva and did a run whilst I was there and running around late.
Oh, wow.
You have those moments where you think, this was a good way of seeing the city.
As long as you know how to get back to...
yes, thank goodness for Google Maps, right? I think it's much harder to get lost now, thankfully.
I did ask you, what was your favourite meal? I don't know if you said pasta last time.
I said pasta, there was no specifics, largely because I just love pasta. And in any form or shape with any topping, whether it's bolognese or seafood or... usually when we go on holiday, I tend to have a lot of clams, fresh pasta, freshly made pasta with lots of fresh seafood. I'm just perfection.
And the time of day, are you better in the morning or any time of day? It doesn't really matter when you go out running.
But better in the morning, which is really interesting because I'm not a morning person. And actually, running in the morning improves my morning.
Yeah,
it makes me more alert, and I fare better during the day. I sleep better at night, but I definitely prefer in the morning. I get a bit more sluggish by the afternoon, and I'm more likely to put it off as well.
Okay. I think that's pretty much it. And this is going to be our Christmas episode, by the way. So this is coming out on the 24th of December. So anything you'd like Santa to bring you running-wise? Or you haven't?
That's a really good question. You know what's really funny is I've actually asked for pottery classes.
Okay.
for Christmas, which are totally not running related. But my family are great. So I think once I started getting into running, they've also been real encouragers. And so most of my running kit have come from my mum and my sister, and particularly because she sometimes works out in the States and she'll buy really nice.
Oh, your sister?
My sister will sometimes have kind of work trips out there, and she'll go pick up some really nice Under Armour kit and things like that. So I would say 90% of my running wardrobe has been gifted over Christmas holidays and various other things. So.
Is she a keen runner or?
No, actually, she's not at all. Which makes it even more amazing, really, that she's really cheerleads my running, which is great. Oh. And vice versa, where when she can, she does try to go out too. But
oh, great. Okay, great. Okay, thank you very much for agreeing to do it the second time. I'm pretty sure that the tech has behaved itself. But unfortunately, a big drawback of this episode is we don't have a cat.
We don't. She's currently sat on my windowsill. I think she was watching the Sainsbury's Delivery Man earlier.
Oh, is she? So what's the name of the cat again? Is it
Cleo?
Cleo's Cleo. Yeah. Oh, no, I know. I tell you, if I told that our girls or especially Anna, that we were going to have a cat here, she would have been here like a shot. So... But anyway, all the best and Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
That's it for another episode, and looking forward to speaking to you next week with some beginner hints and tips about running. I just want to let you know that you can follow me on X, or what was known as Twitter, at Brian's Run Pod. I have just recently set up a Facebook page which is called Brian's Run Pod, and I am on Instagram at Brian's Run Pod. Also, my website is www.briansrunpod.co.uk, where you can get show notes, or on whatever podcasting app you are listening to the show. Plus, all my episodes have chapter markers if you need to get to different segments of the show. Plus, leave a review, as it will help others find this podcast. Music is Happy Day by Stock Audio, not forgetting artwork by Alice Patterson. Till next week, thanks again for listening.